The man burst through the courtroom doors, voice booming over the startled crowd. "Stop this courtroom," he yelled. "This place is corrupt. Judge, shut it down." Gasps filled the room. Every camera turned. Every eye locked on Judge Judy. But she did not flinch. She simply picked up a file, her voice calm as steel. "I already know you," she said, "and I know your crimes." Whatever happened next made that man wish he had never opened his mouth. The echo of his voice still hung in the air like smoke. The courtroom was frozen. 1,000 eyes locked on the man who had just stormed in mid-hearing, his words still slicing through the silence. "Stop this courtroom. It's corrupt." Judge Judy didn't move. Her gavel rested on the desk, untouched, yet her presence alone felt louder than the chaos he'd unleashed. The bailiff's hand hovered near his sidearm, but Judy lifted a single finger, a silent command for restraint. The cameras rolled. Even they seemed hesitant to blink. The man's chest heaved with arrogance. His eyes darted across the audience, desperate for validation. "You're all watching a lie," he shouted. "This whole show, this judge, she's a fraud." Someone gasped. A woman in the front row covered her mouth. The clerk's typing stopped mid-word. Judge Judy leaned back slightly, her tone calm, almost surgical. "Sir," she said, each syllable measured, "you are interrupting a legal proceeding. Identify yourself." "I'm Ryan Keller," he barked, "and I'm here to expose the truth you all ignore." For a moment, Judy said nothing. Her silence pressed against the room like gravity. The fluorescent lights above hummed, the only sound brave enough to exist. Then softly she spoke. "I know that name." The words fell like a gavel without sound. The audience murmured, confused. The man blinked, surprised that she remembered. Judy nodded to the bailiff. "Do not remove him, not yet." Her tone shifted, not angry but deliberate. "Mr. Keller, since you believe this courtroom corrupt, I will give you the courtesy of speaking. But understand this, every word you say becomes evidence the moment it leaves your mouth." The man hesitated. He hadn't expected permission. He'd expected resistance. And in that hesitation, the balance of power began to shift. He stepped forward, swaggering with renewed defiance. "You people think this is justice? You silence anyone who questions you. You made a career humiliating others on camera, and now enough." Judy's voice cut through him like a blade through glass. She rose from her chair, and even the bailiff took a step back. Her eyes, cold but alive, locked on his with something between disappointment and curiosity. "You came here without invitation," she said, "and yet, somehow, I expected you." Ryan frowned. "What's that supposed to mean?" Judy reached for a file resting beside her, thick, worn, sealed with a red tag. "It means," she said slowly, "I've been waiting for this name to walk back into my courtroom." A ripple of whispers moved through the crowd. Ryan's bravado faltered, his throat tightening. Judy opened the file, pages whispering like ghosts. Her gaze never left him. "You wanted attention, Mr. Keller. Now, you have it." The courtroom was dead silent. Only her words filled the space. Deliberate, precise, final. Then she leaned forward, resting both hands on the bench. "Let him speak," she said quietly. "I want to hear his version." Ryan smirked, mistaking mercy for weakness. And that was his second mistake. The tension still pulsed in the air when Ryan Keller took a defiant step forward. The bailiff shifted his weight, ready to intervene, but Judge Judy's calm hand froze everyone in place. "Mr. Keller," she began, her tone steady but razor-sharp, "you said you were here to expose the truth. Then expose it. I am listening." Ryan smirked, a brittle kind of confidence. "You want the truth? Fine." He turned toward the cameras, his voice swelling with self-importance. 5 years ago, I filed a complaint in this very court. I had proof that my landlord forged documents, but you—" he pointed at her, "you dismissed it like it meant nothing." The courtroom gasped. Judy didn't blink. She sat like a statue, her gaze fixed but unreadable. "I lost everything because of that," Ryan continued. "You humiliated me on TV, made me look like a liar. I watched people laugh at my pain while you collected your ratings." Judy tilted her head slightly, eyes narrowing just enough to show curiosity rather than anger. "You are mistaken about two things," she said quietly. "One, this courtroom is not for spectacle. Two, I never forget a liar." Ryan's bravado cracked for the first time. "What's that supposed to mean?" Judy lifted a folder from her desk, the same one she had retrieved earlier. The tag on it was faintly visible now, Keller v. Simmons, 2019. She opened it with deliberate slowness, the sound of paper scraping echoing through the room. "This," she said, "is your case, the one you say I ignored." The audience leaned in, Ryan's face drained of color. "You were caught falsifying your own lease documents," Judy continued, "and when confronted you stormed out before the ruling was complete." "Do you deny that?" Ryan stammered. That file's fake. I never—" "Fake." Judy's voice didn't rise, but it carried authority heavy enough to silence him. "Mr. Keller, you signed every page of this, and just in case you claim forgery again," she turned to the clerk, "bring up the archival record from that day." The lights dimmed slightly as the monitor flickered to life. The old footage appeared, a younger Ryan standing in the same courtroom, shouting almost the exact same words. Gasps erupted. He looked at the screen, horror growing in his eyes. That's not me," he whispered. But the screen didn't lie. His voice, his tone, his arrogance, all preserved in digital memory. Judy's expression softened, but her voice remained firm. "People forget their lies, Mr. Keller." "The court does not." The audience sat in stunned silence. Even the bailiff's usual stoicism cracked into faint disbelief. Ryan's hands trembled, his earlier fury replaced with quiet dread. You kept that file?" "I keep them all," Judy said. "A justice has a long memory." Judy turned the file around, letting the camera catch the final page, a photograph clipped to the inside. It wasn't from the old case. It was dated this year, and Ryan Keller's signature was right at the bottom. The photograph fluttered under the fluorescent lights. Ryan Keller's name scrawled across the bottom, like a ghost refusing to stay buried. For a long moment, no one breathed. Even the cameras seemed to steady their focus, as if afraid to interrupt. Ryan's voice cracked first. That can't be mine. I never signed anything this year." Judge Judy said nothing. She just turned the page. Another document followed, then another. Each one bore his name, his handwriting, his address, all connected to new fraud complaints filed in Los Angeles and Nevada. The bailiff took a slow step closer, instinctively reading the shift in the room's air. Judy finally spoke. "These were sent to this court 3 months ago. Do you know what they contain?" Ryan swallowed hard, his jaw clenching. "You're setting me up." "I've never even seen those." Her voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. "I expected you to say that." She handed the top page to the clerk. "Run handwriting verification. Page 3, signature line." The courtroom stirred. Low murmurs rippled through the seats like an approaching storm. Ryan's bravado faltered into anger. "This isn't justice. You think you can rewrite my life just to make another episode?" Judy leaned back, folding her hands. "You seem to misunderstand, Mr. Keller. This isn't entertainment. This is record." Her tone was clinical, detached, yet somehow personal, like a surgeon cutting away infection with mercy. Ryan turned toward the audience, shouting to them instead. "Do you see what she's doing? She's trying to destroy me again." But nobody met his eyes. Even the bailiff's expression had changed. Not aggression, just disappointment. The clerk cleared her throat softly. "Your Honor, handwriting verification matches prior documents on file." Ryan froze. His mouth opened, but nothing came out. The proof was irrefutable. He had signed them recently. Judge Judy lifted the folder and tapped it once against the desk. "Mr. Keller, your problem isn't corruption," she said. "It's memory. You forget that lies have fingerprints." The line landed heavy, a cinematic cut in sound. He looked smaller now, the fury in him shrinking under fluorescent light. "You doctored paperwork, harassed former landlords, and filed false claims under multiple aliases," Judy continued. "And when you were finally caught, you decided the system was to blame." Ryan's eyes darted toward the exit. The bailiff stepped in front of it. "You can't hold me here," Ryan barked. "This isn't even a real court." Judy's gaze hardened. You are standing before a judge, cameras or not. Every word you say is under record. You wanted your moment, and this is it." She turned toward the clerk. "Play the footage." The lights dimmed again and the old courtroom video reappeared, this time zoomed closer, catching Ryan's younger self slamming his hands on a desk. Same tone. Same rage, same words. The sound echoed through the room, overlapping with his present voice like two timelines colliding. Ryan looked up, realization dawning. That's me." Judge Judy leaned forward, her eyes cold but calm. "Yes," she said, "and this time, you will hear what you sound like when the truth finally answers back." The video played like a haunting confession. Ryan Keller's past projected against the present. On the screen, his younger self screamed at a different judge, spewing the same words, the same venom. "I'll expose you all." His echo thundered through the courtroom, bouncing off every wall. Now standing in front of Judge Judy, the real Ryan froze. The irony cut sharper than any verdict. His voice, his arrogance, his very performance, now evidence against him. The crowd shifted uneasily. The woman from the front row whispered, "It's like he's trapped in his own loop." Judy didn't move, her gaze locked on the screen. The light flickered over her face, one half shadowed, one half lit, truth and consequence sharing the same space. When the video ended, silence fell so thick even the hum of the light seemed afraid to continue. She finally spoke, her tone lower now, deliberate, dissecting. "You said you came here for justice, but this is not the first courtroom you've tried to overthrow. You have a pattern, Mr. Keller." Ryan's eyes darted to the camera crew. "Do you think I don't know how this works?" "You'll twist it again. You'll make me look crazy." Judy leaned forward, her voice cutting through his panic. "No one is making you look crazy, Mr. Keller. You're doing that all by yourself." The courtroom gasped, half in shock, half in admiration. Even the bailiff's jaw tightened to suppress a grin. Ryan's chest rose and fell fast, his bravado breaking into visible tremors. "I didn't do anything wrong," he insisted. "I was defending myself." Judy raised an eyebrow. "Against what? Accountability?" Her question hung in the air like thunder waiting to strike. Ryan's mouth opened, but no words came. His silence said everything. Judy tapped the folder once more. "The court has seen this behavior before. The same pattern, the same outbursts, the same accusations. You said your name was Ryan Keller, correct?" He hesitated, suspicious. "Yeah." Her voice turned quiet, almost tender. "Interesting. Because according to this file, you testified in that old case under a different name." The audience stirred again. The clerk adjusted her glasses, flipping a page. "Your Honor, it's true. The witness listed in the previous case is Ryan Ellis. The handwriting matches perfectly." Ryan's breath caught. That was a mistake. I was scared back then." Judy's tone shifted, calm, merciless. "Fear doesn't justify deception. You weren't a defendant then, Mr. Keller. You were pretending to be a witness. You lied under oath." Gasps filled the courtroom. The cameras zoomed in on his trembling hands. Judy stood now, a slow, measured movement that drew every eye in the room. "History repeats itself," she said, her voice cold as glass, "when arrogance refuses to learn." Ryan stumbled backward, his face pale, his world collapsing under the weight of his own echo. Judy turned to the clerk. "Unseal the secondary file. The one labeled perjury, witness Ryan Ellis." And as the file slid across her desk, the courtroom knew. This case had just become something far bigger than a man's temper. The murmur that filled the courtroom after Judy's order was unlike any before. Not gossip, not curiosity, but something heavier. The weight of exposure. The file marked perjury. Witness Ryan Ellis rested on her bench like a live wire. Every click of the clerk's pen, every breath seemed amplified. Ryan stood motionless, sweat glinting across his temple. "You can't just pull that up," he shouted, voice cracking. "That case was dismissed." Judge Judy's tone stayed calm, surgical. "It was not dismissed, Mr. Keller. It was suspended pending verification, which, according to my records, never happened because you disappeared." She flipped the file open. "Until today." The audience leaned forward, pulled by gravity stronger than curiosity. "You've lied under oath, filed false claims, and now disrupted a live hearing," she continued. "That is not coincidence. That is intention." Ryan's hands shook, I think you've got everything figured out, don't you? I do not assume, Judy replied, eyes steady. I verify. She motioned to the clerk. Play the recorded statement from the original perjury file. A low crackle filled the speakers. Then Ryan's younger voice, confident, smug, certain. I saw him sign it. I'll testify again if I have to. But the statement log showed something damning. His signature as both witness and claimant. The audience gasped. A man in the back muttered, he signed twice. Both sides. Ryan's breathing turned shallow. You don't understand. They told me to do it. It was supposed to be part of an investigation. Who told you? Judy interrupted softly. Ryan blinked as if trying to remember a lie that no longer fit. It was years ago, when Elena sat. Her fingers trembled slightly against the wooden rail. Mr. Keller and we ran a small online channel, she began. We called it Justice Unfiltered. It started as commentary on public trials. Reaction videos, discussions, that kind of thing. Ryan interrupted, voice booming. She's lying. She's just trying to save herself. Judy turned her gaze on him, calm but deadly. Mr. Keller, another outburst and you will be removed. Do not test the patience you've already borrowed. He fell silent. The bailiff didn't move, but the warning hung like a blade in the air. Elena continued, her words trembling between regret and resolve. At first it was about exposing unfair rulings. But Ryan, he wanted more views, more outrage. He started harassing court staff, emailing producers, even showing up at tapings to provoke reactions. She swallowed hard. The more people watched, the more he believed he was untouchable. Judy leaned forward slightly. And today? Eleanor's eyes glistened. He said he wanted to make a scene, something viral. Said he was going to confront you live, call you corrupt and force the cameras to capture it. Ryan exploded. You helped me plan it. Don't act innocent now. The courtroom erupted in noise. Gasps, murmurs, the electric buzz of collective disbelief. Judy slammed the gavel once, crack. Silence returned instantly. Elena, she said, her tone slicing through the tension, do you have proof of what you're saying? Eleanor nodded slowly. Her hand slipped into her purse and emerged with a phone. Yes, Your Honor. Recordings, messages, even footage from our meetings. She placed the phone gently on the evidence tray. Everything's on here. Ryan's face went pale. You wouldn't... Eleanor's eyes flickered toward him. Sorrow, not malice. I already did. Judy gestured for the clerk to collect the phone. We'll examine it shortly. She looked back to Ryan, her expression unreadable. It seems, Mr. Keller, that your truth is about to have company. He gritted his teeth, glaring at Elena with disbelief and fury. You're doing this to save yourself, she whispered, just loud enough for the microphone to catch. No, Ryan, I'm doing it because you never learned when to stop. Judge Judy nodded to the clerk. Play the recordings. The screen behind the bench flickered to life, and the sound that followed made the courtroom forget how to breathe. If you were sitting in that courtroom, would you stay silent, or would you speak up when the truth finally arrived? The courtroom lights dimmed slightly as the screen came alive. A faint hiss of static filled the air before the first recording began to play. No music, no edits, just truth, raw, shaky, undeniable. On the screen, Ryan's voice burst through, if we can get her angry on camera, that's it. Viral gold. Doesn't matter what happens after. The sound of laughter followed, hollow, nervous, belonging to Elena. The timestamp blinked across the top corner, 2 weeks ago. The entire courtroom fell into stunned silence. Judge Judy didn't move, her eyes fixed on the screen, her hands resting calmly on the desk. Ryan's breathing grew loud, ragged. That's not what it sounds like. But the recording continued. Ryan's voice again, sharper this time. We'll call her fake, expose her, make it look like she hides real cases. People love watching arrogance full, even if we fake it. Elena lowered her gaze, tears glistening under the fluorescent lights. I told you it wasn't right, she murmured. You said truth didn't matter anymore. Only clicks did. Ryan turned toward her, eyes blazing. You edited that! You're twisting it. Judy's tone stayed quiet, surgical. Ms. Torres, is this your recording? Yes, Your Honor, Elena whispered. Every file is time-stamped and backed up. I sent copies to the network before I came here. The air shifted. Even the camera crew behind the benches seemed frozen. Judy looked back at Ryan. You accuse this courtroom of corruption. Yet your plan was deception. Tell me, Mr. Keller, what word do you think fits better now? Ryan's lips parted, but nothing came. His face flushed red, a storm of humiliation boiling beneath the surface. He glanced toward the audience as if begging someone, anyone, to still believe him. But the faces looking back weren't angry anymore. They were disappointed. The next recording started automatically. A video this time. Ryan sat in a car, phone camera aimed at his face, grinning. They think they can silence me, just wait. I'm walking into that courtroom next week, and I'll make Judge Judy herself lose control. Judy exhaled slowly, like someone who'd seen too many lies dressed as bravery. You wanted to make me lose control, she said softly. Instead, you've lost yourself. Ryan slammed his fist on the table. This is manipulation. She's setting me up. The bailiff stepped forward instinctively, but Judy raised her hand. Let him speak, she said. His words are the only thing still convicting him. Ryan's anger cracked into desperation. I just wanted to prove a point. Judy's reply was quiet, almost compassionate. And what point is that? That shame becomes truth if shouted loudly enough? The courtroom went still again. The tension felt human now. Less rage, more regret. Ryan sank into his chair, hands trembling. The arrogance that had carried him in was gone, replaced by the hollow stillness of someone realizing the world wasn't watching a hero. It was watching a collapse. Judy looked at the bailiff. Her voice was almost a whisper. Lock the doors, she said. This hearing is not over. The courtroom doors clicked shut. The sound was soft, almost polite, but it hit the room like thunder. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. The balance of power had shifted completely. Judge Judy straightened in her chair, the light from the overhead lamp forming a sharp line across her bench. We are not dealing with a television stunt anymore, she said. This is now an evidentiary hearing. Ryan Keller's jaw tightened. He stood again, his voice trembling between outrage and panic. You can't hold me here. This isn't real court. It's a show. Judy's eyes flickered toward the bailiff. Mr. Keller, you've just confirmed why it is real. Because your arrogance has turned entertainment into obstruction. Her words cut through the air with surgical precision. She nodded to the clerk. Bring up today's security footage. The monitors blinked to life again. This time not recordings from years ago, but from this very morning. The timestamp glowed in the corner. 9:12 a.m. The video showed Ryan pacing in the courthouse hallway, pacing like a lion behind glass. He spoke into his phone, unaware that security cameras had caught everything. Just keep rolling, his voice echoed. Once I get in, I'll make her snap. That's how we'll get the clip trending. Don't stop recording until security grabs me. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Judy didn't look away from the screen. The next frame froze everyone in place. Ryan was seen shoving a production assistant out of the way as he forced the courtroom doors open earlier that morning. The bailiff, watching the footage live now, took an involuntary step forward, his knuckles whitening. The screen cut to black. The silence that followed was unbearable. Judy's tone was steady, each word deliberate. So, you didn't come here for justice. You came here for fame. Ryan's bravado evaporated. No, that's not enough, Judy said, her voice turning sharp. You were caught on film physically assaulting a staff member and attempting to disrupt a federal recording session. That is contempt, assault, and interference with court function. He froze. Assault? You can't. I can, Judy interrupted, her eyes narrowing. And I will. The bailiff stepped closer now, the metal of his cuffs catching the light. Ryan's shoulders sagged, the fight leaving his voice. You don't understand. This wasn't supposed to go this far. Judy tilted her head. Arrogance never does. It always believes it can control consequence, until consequence walks in wearing a badge. Eleanor lowered her gaze, whispering through tears. I told you. Ryan, Judge Judy turned to her clerk, voice calm again, almost eerily so. File a contempt report. Forward all digital evidence to the appropriate authorities. Mr. Keller is no longer a disruptor. Ryan Keller stood frozen, eyes darting between the gavel, the cameras, and the bailiff inching closer with the cuffs. Every ounce of bravado he'd walked in with had drained into fear. The same man who had stormed into the courtroom shouting now looked like a shadow of himself, cornered, trembling, yet still refusing to fall silent. He straightened his back. forcing a grin that didn't reach his eyes. "You think you've got me figured out, Judge? You think you can humiliate me again on camera? That's what this all is, performance." Judy's expression didn't waver. "No, Mr. Keller," she said quietly. "This isn't a performance. This is accountability." Her voice was calm, but her gaze burned. Ryan laughed, a broken, desperate sound. "You sit there pretending to be the voice of justice, but you only care about the show. The lights, the cameras. You feed off this." The crowd gasped, sensing danger in his tone. The bailiff stepped forward, but Judy raised her hand. Her stillness was its own kind of power. "Mr. Keller," she said, her tone steady as stone, "you are mistaking transparency for entertainment. The difference is that one reveals truth. The other hides from it." He opened his mouth to retort, but his words faltered. For the first time there was no script, no audience cheering him on, just silence that mirrored the chaos inside him. Judy leaned forward slightly, voice softening just enough to sound human. "You came here to provoke me because you never learned how to face yourself. You needed me to be the villain so you could keep pretending you were the victim." Ryan's breath hitched. His defiance flickered. "That's not true," he whispered. "It's the only truth you've refused to admit," she replied. The camera zoomed closer, the lighting catching the tear that formed but never fell. Ryan's voice broke. "I lost everything because of you." Judy didn't flinch. "You lost everything because you lied to everyone, including yourself." The audience was still. Even Eleanor couldn't look up. Judy rose slowly, the black of her robe rippling under the studio lights. "You want to talk about corruption? Then look at what arrogance does when it's left unchecked." Her hand reached for the gavel, not to strike it, but to rest upon it, as if grounding herself in justice one more time. "I am giving you one final chance to tell this court the truth. No theatrics, no shouting, just the truth." Ryan's lips quivered. I can't." "You can," Judy said softly. "You just don't want to live in the world that truth creates." The bailiff took another step closer. The metallic click of the handcuffs echoed, cold and deliberate. Ryan looked at them, then back at her. His pride battled his fear and lost. He lowered his head. Judy's voice broke the silence like a slow verdict. "Take a seat." "Mr. Keller, you'll speak, under oath." The cuffs gleamed on the desk, waiting for him to decide which would come first, confession or consequence. "Do you think remorse should erase guilt, or does justice demand consequence no matter how late it comes?" The bailiff's shadow stretched long across the floor as Ryan Keller sank into the witness chair. The cuffs rested on the table beside him, silent, silver reminders of what waited for his next lie. The cameras zoomed in, the red lights glowing like watchful eyes. Judge Judy leaned forward, her tone low, her cadence deliberate. "Mr. Keller, before we proceed, you will speak under oath. You understand what that means?" Ryan hesitated, throat tight. "Yeah, I understand." "Say it clearly for the record." "I understand," he muttered. Judy nodded. "Good. Then begin with the truth. Why did you come here today?" Ryan shifted in his seat, sweat forming at his temple. "I told you I wanted justice." Judy didn't blink. "No, you wanted revenge. Justice requires humility. Revenge requires an audience." Her words hit him like a slap of cold water. He looked away, jaw clenching, silence swallowing the seconds. "Let me help you," Judy continued. "You've lied to the court before. You've forged signatures, filed false claims, and performed for cameras instead of facing the truth. Why now? Why return here?" Ryan's hands fidgeted. His voice dropped to a whisper. "Because they told me to." The room tensed instantly, the audience collectively inhaling. "Who told you?" Judy asked, leaning closer. He didn't answer. The bailiff took a half step forward. "Mr. Keller," Judy said calmly, "you are moments away from contempt and possibly federal referral. Now is your one opportunity to turn your story into something other than a mugshot." Ryan's shoulders slumped. His voice trembled. "There's a channel online. They call themselves Justice Unchained. They pay people to disrupt live court shows, to make judges look corrupt, to make the system look like a circus." Gasps rippled through the audience. Even Judy's usually controlled expression flickered, a rare flash of surprise. Ryan continued, voice breaking. "They wanted me to come here and push you until you snapped. They said if I could make you lose control, they'd pay me 10 grand and promote my own channel. Said I'd be famous. The weight of his words sank into the room like wet concrete. Who runs this channel? Judy asked. Ryan hesitated again, eyes darting toward Elena. She stared back, pale and wide-eyed, shaking her head as if begging him not to say it. Judy noticed. Mr. Keller, she pressed, answer the question. He swallowed hard. It's someone I used to trust. Someone who said we'd both win from this. Name, Judy demanded. Ryan's voice cracked as the words slipped out. Elena. A collective gasp filled the courtroom. Elena's hand flew to her mouth. That's not... He's twisting it. Judy's expression hardened. Mr. Keller, are you stating under oath that Ms. Torres orchestrated this stunt? Ryan nodded weakly. She planned it. I just went along. The silence that followed wasn't disbelief, it was betrayal taking form. Judy turned to the clerk. Pull his phone records immediately. The clerk nodded, typing fast. The screen flickered, and within seconds Judy's eyes locked on the name glowing at the top of the call log. Her voice fell to a whisper. Not for drama, but for control. Ms. Torres, she said, care to explain why your number is listed here and 6 times this morning? The courtroom seemed to tilt when Judge Judy read the name aloud. Ms. Torres, she said again, slower this time, her tone tightening around each syllable. Your number appears 6 times on Mr. Keller's call log this morning, all before the outburst. Elena froze. Her lips parted, but no words came. The tension in the room felt like static, invisible, sharp, alive. Judy's eyes locked on her. You told this court you came here to testify against him. So why, Ms. Torres, were you in contact with him hours before this hearing began? Elena's fingers trembled around the edge of the witness stand. Say it wasn't like that, Your Honor. He called me. Judy raised an eyebrow. 6 times? The clerk confirmed. All incoming, Your Honor. Last call at 37 minutes before the disruption. Ryan turned toward her, voice breaking with equal parts anger and hurt. You told me it was handled. You said this would make us even. Elena's eyes snapped to him, tears spilling. You weren't supposed to go that far. I told you to make a statement, not to storm the court. The audience erupted. Gasps, whispers, the buzz of a scandal unraveling live. Judy struck her gavel once, the sound sharp enough to slice through chaos. Enough, she barked. This court will have order. Silence fell again, heavy and breathless. Judy turned back to Elena, her voice low but deadly calm. Ms. Torres, are you admitting that you were in contact with Mr. Keller regarding today's hearing? Elena's voice trembled. Yes, but not for this. I just wanted closure. He said he was coming to apologize. I didn't think... Don't you dare, Ryan snapped. You said we'd expose her together. You said it'd fix everything you lost because of her ruling. Judy's expression shifted, not shock but recognition. Her eyes softened, almost pitying. So that's what this is about. Elena looked down ashamed. Years ago I lost my small business after one of your judgments, Your Honor. I blamed you. I wanted to make people see how unfair it felt. Ryan laughed bitterly. Unfair? You used me. You set me up. Elena wiped her tears, shaking her head. So you were already broken, Ryan. I just gave you a target. The confession hung in the air like a storm cloud ready to burst. Judy's voice lowered, cold but controlled. Ms. Torres, manipulation of a witness and conspiracy to disrupt a legal proceeding are serious offenses. You didn't come here for justice either. You came for revenge at the same poison that brought him back. Elena's voice cracked. I just wanted someone to pay. And someone will, Judy said softly. Because justice doesn't bend for broken hearts or bitter egos. Tears ran freely down Elena's face. She didn't resist when the bailiff stepped toward her, placing a gentle but firm hand on her shoulder. Ryan watched, silent now, his rage evaporating into disbelief. As the bailiff led Elena toward the exit, Judy spoke again, not to her but to Ryan. You thought she was your ally. She thought you were her weapon. Neither of you realized you were both building the same trap, and now you've both fallen into it. Her gavel struck once, echoing like judgment itself. The door shut behind Elena with a hollow thud that felt heavier than any gavel. The echoes lingered, like a ghost that refused to leave the room. The audience sat in absolute silence. Every camera was fixed on Ryan Keller, but he no longer looked like a man ready to fight. He looked emptied. His hands hung limp over the table, the veins visible beneath pale skin. His mouth moved as if to speak, but no words came. When he finally looked up, his eyes were red, not with rage, but with something far rarer in that courtroom: recognition. Judge Judy didn't speak right away. She watched him, studied him. Then softly she said, "Now that the noise is gone, Mr. Keller, maybe you can finally hear yourself." Ryan swallowed hard. "She used me," he said, voice hoarse. "Everything I did, it was for nothing." Judy tilted her head, the faintest trace of compassion in her tone. "It wasn't for nothing. You showed the world exactly what happens when anger becomes purpose." The audience remained still, afraid even to breathe. The cameras zoomed closer. "I thought if I embarrassed you, people would listen," Ryan whispered. "But she just wanted revenge." Judy leaned forward slightly, her voice lowering. "And what did you want, Mr. Keller?" He blinked, confused. "What? What did you want?" She repeated. "Not her. Not the internet. You. What were you really trying to fix?" Ryan stared down at the table. "I don't know. Maybe I wanted to matter again." The line hung in the air like a confession too fragile to break. Even the bailiff, stoic, immovable, shifted his stance, the emotion sinking in. Judy's tone softened, barely above a whisper. "There's no shame in wanting to matter. The shame comes from thinking destruction will get you there." For the first time, Ryan didn't argue. He just nodded, slow, broken, sincere. Judy gestured for the bailiff to step back. Her posture eased, no longer the immovable authority, but a weary truth-teller. "This courtroom has seen anger before, Mr. Keller, but yours, it came from pain. And pain doesn't vanish by creating more of it." Ryan's eyes glistened. "So what happens now?" Her answer came without hesitation. "Now you do what you should have done years ago, take responsibility." He nodded again, more firmly this time. "I will." Judy folded her hands, the gesture final yet almost maternal. "Good. Because the law doesn't exist to humiliate. It exists to reveal." The audience could feel the shift. The scene no longer about punishment, but transformation. Ryan took a deep breath, his voice barely audible. "I didn't mean to hurt anyone. I just didn't know how else to be seen." Judy's expression softened even further. "Then let this be your start. Not as a spectacle, but as a man who finally stopped running from himself." He nodded, tears falling freely now. Not out of guilt, but release. Judy turned to the clerk. "Prepare the restitution order. He'll pay for the damage, and not with money, but with service." The gavel rested beside her hand, but she didn't strike it. Instead, she looked at Ryan one last time. "Now," she said quietly, "tell me you understand what justice really is." The courtroom felt different now. The tension that once rattled the air had settled into something quieter, heavier. The lights, once harsh, seemed softer, casting long shadows that wrapped around the wooden benches like still water. The gavel sat untouched, and Judge Judy's voice lowered to something almost human. "Do you understand what justice is, Mr. Keller?" she repeated. Ryan looked down at his reflection on the polished table, the same table he had slammed with rage an hour ago. His lips trembled. "It's when you finally stop lying," he said, his voice barely a whisper. Judy nodded slowly. "Justice begins where excuses end." The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was alive. Every person in the room felt it, the slow, humbling weight of truth filling the air like fog. Even the cameras, still recording, seemed reluctant to intrude on what had become something beyond spectacle. Ryan rubbed his face with both hands, exhaling shakily. "I ruined everything. The show, the people who trusted me, even her." His voice trailed off as he thought of Elena. "I thought if I could make everyone see the cracks in your world, maybe they'd stop seeing mine." Judy's expression softened, but her words stayed measured. "So you thought truth was a weapon, but truth doesn't need violence to be heard." He nodded slowly, defeated yet strangely lighter. "You're right." "For once," she replied, the faintest hint of dry wit slipping through, a flash of the Judge Judy the world knew, not the firebrand, but the moral compass cloaked in sarcasm. But understanding it doesn't erase what came before. You'll carry that. The question is, will you let it define you? Ryan looked up, his voice raw. "I don't know how to start over." Her tone softened. "Starting over isn't the hard part. Forgiving yourself is." The audience stirred, not in noise, but in quiet empathy. There was no villain left in this room, no audience rooting for collapse. Only people witnessing consequence find its echo in confession. Judy leaned back, her robe rustling softly. "You know, Mr. Keller," she said, "for all the shouting, all the chaos, and the truth arrived quietly. It always does." Ryan nodded again, almost in disbelief that she wasn't yelling. "You're not what I thought you were," he murmured. "And you're not what you pretended to be," she replied, gently. The exchange lingered like an aftertaste, humility meeting its reflection. The clerk cleared her throat softly. "Your Honor, the restitution documents are ready." Judy acknowledged her with a nod, then turned back to Ryan. "When you walk out of here, remember this moment, the silence. It's not punishment, it's peace. You earned it the second you start performing." Ryan wiped his eyes, voice barely audible. "Thank you." She didn't smile, but her eyes softened, a flicker of warmth behind the steel. "Don't thank me. Earn it again outside these walls." The courtroom lights dimmed slightly as she reached for the gavel, but she didn't strike it yet. Her gaze shifted to the bailiff. "Proceed with the order." The metallic sound of the cuffs closing echoed again, not cruelly, but ceremonially, like the final chord of truth itself. The courtroom was silent as the bailiff stepped forward. The sound of metal clicking filled the air, not harsh, not triumphant, but final. The handcuffs glinted beneath the overhead lights as Ryan Keller extended his wrists without resistance. The man who once stormed in like a hurricane now moved with the stillness of surrender. Judge Judy didn't look away. Her eyes followed the motion carefully, not as a judge overseeing punishment, but as someone witnessing understanding being born. The bailiff's voice broke the silence, firm but measured. "Mr. Keller, you are being remanded for contempt and restitution as ordered by this court." Ryan nodded, his voice steady for the first time all day. "I understand." Judy folded her hands, her tone even, deliberate. He blinked in surprise. "You're not sending me to jail." She met his eyes. "No, I'm sending you somewhere harder, where people will look you in the eye and ask you for honesty." The audience shifted, a low murmur of astonishment sweeping through. Even the cameras seemed to linger longer on her face, capturing the subtle power behind her mercy. Ryan swallowed hard. "You could have made an example out of me." Judy's voice softened. "You already did that yourself." Her words hit him, with a strange kind of grace, sharp enough to humble, soft enough to heal. The bailiff gestured toward the exit, but Judy raised her hand. "One more thing," she said. Ryan stopped. She stood, the room instinctively rising with her presence. The robe caught the light as she spoke. "This courtroom isn't about destroying people. It's about holding up a mirror. Some break when they see the reflection, others rebuild." She took a step closer, her voice carrying the quiet rhythm of truth. "You, Mr. Keller, chose destruction first. Now you have the chance to rebuild. Don't waste it." Ryan's throat tightened. "I won't." For a heartbeat, the room was still again, every eye watching the impossible transformation of chaos into calm. The bailiff nodded and guided Ryan toward the door. As he walked past the gallery, several spectators stood, not in applause but in silent respect. Even Elena, seated at the back under supervision, wiped her tears as their eyes briefly met. No words passed between them, but something unspoken did. Regret, maybe even forgiveness. Judy watched it all with the same steady gaze she had at the beginning, yet her expression now held something new, weary empathy. She lowered herself back into her seat, exhaling softly as if releasing the entire case from her chest. The bailiff paused at the door. "Your Honor?" She looked up. "Yes? Shall I close proceedings?" She nodded once. "Yes, but let the record show." Her gaze swept across the silent courtroom. "That even arrogance can learn humility, if truth is patient enough to wait." The gavel rose, its surface gleaming under the lights. Crack! The sound echoed like thunder across the quiet courtroom. The moment hung in the air, final, absolute. Then, as the doors opened and Ryan disappeared from view, the camera lingered on Judge Judy's face, calm, resolute, unreadable. "Before you hear the verdict, tell me, do you believe people truly change, or do they just learn to live with who they are?" The echo of the gavel slowly faded, replaced by the soft shuffle of papers, and the hum of the courtroom lights. Judge Judy remained seated, her hands resting gently on the bench. The tension that had once hung heavy in the air had vanished, replaced by a strange, fragile peace, the kind that only follows after a storm finally spends itself. The courtroom. Crew began to pack away their equipment, but Judy didn't move. She watched the empty chair where Ryan Keller had sat, as if the imprint of his chaos still lingered there, a reminder of what justice costs when truth comes too late. The bailiff approached quietly. "Your Honor, proceedings are officially closed." Judy nodded, her eyes distant. "Not for him," she said softly. "For him, they're just beginning." The clerk hesitated, sensing there was something unspoken still left in the air. "You think he'll change?" Judy's gaze lingered on the bench, where the reflection of the gavel shimmered faintly in the light. "Change isn't magic," she said. "It's a choice, made one honest day at a time." The clerk nodded slowly, letting the words settle. From the corner of the room, Eleanor Torres was escorted out, silent, remorse written across every movement. Judy's eyes followed her briefly, but without bitterness. "Two people," she murmured, each certain they were right, neither realizing that truth doesn't need sides. The clerk glanced up. "You sounded almost sad, Judge." Judy smiled faintly, the expression small but genuine. "Sadness and justice share a wall, don't they? Sometimes they even echo each other." The courtroom was nearly empty now. Only the faint scent of paper and polish remained, the aftertaste of judgment. Judy stood slowly, the black robe flowing around her like calm water. She looked toward the camera crew, the only audience left, and spoke as if addressing not them but anyone watching beyond the lens. "Every person who walks through these doors believes their story is unique," she said, "but arrogance, deceit, and pride, they all sound the same in the end. They shout until truth gets tired of waiting, and then truth answers back." Her eyes softened again, the steel in her tone giving way to something deeply human. "Justice isn't about winning, it's about becoming accountable, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts." She turned toward the bench, fingertips brushing across its edge. The gesture was tender, reverent, a small ritual between her and the seat of judgment. "This place," she whispered, "it doesn't belong to me. It belongs to everyone brave enough to face what they've done." The bailiff, still standing at the doorway, gave a respectful nod. "You handled him well, Judge." Judy glanced back, a hint of that legendary spark returning to her expression. "I didn't handle him," she said. "Truth did. I just made sure the room was quiet enough for him to hear it." She picked up the gavel one last time, not to strike it, but to set it gently back in its place. The lights dimmed. The camera lingered on her face, calm, worn, but resolute. And as the screen faded to black, her final words echoed through the room like a closing prayer. "Arrogance always collapses under truth, and when it does, justice doesn't need to raise its voice."